Welcome back to Football Daily Weekly. Lovely to have you again on the channel, and today we're talking about a number of good weekendy things. Mourinho, whether he's going to keep his job. Obviously, there's the interesting side of Manchester, which is red. Bayern looking pretty, well, still like Bayern actually. And, of course, Vardy, and whether he's on the plane. Joining us to talk about people on and off planes, Sam Homewood. Welcome back to the show. Lovely to have you.
Great
It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be had.
I'm going to keep saying it until you acknowledge it's good to be had.
It's really good to be had.
Yeah.
Feels great.
You don't know what you've got till it's gone. When the cameras go off, you'll start missing it.
They paved paradise and put up another YouTube channel. What are you saying?
I'm just very happy to be here.
As always.
Yeah, as always. You know, just very, very grateful.
But when I say happy to be here, when you say that, you don't mean because of the Chelsea result on the weekend. We should probably start there. And point one is, Mourinho is.
He certainly is.
Yeah.
And he's on the brink, isn't he?
Is he?
I think so. Well, I actually think this isn't. I don't think you can tell whether he's going to go or stay at the moment.
Yeah, but there's a number of people who are so intent on telling, aren't there?
There are. Everybody seems to have a really valid opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't think
Do
mine
you?
is valid, but
Right.
I've got an opinion.
Okay. Let's not hear
I
it.
would say now he's doing much worse than the year that they did get rid of him. Way back in 2006 or 7 when they struggled at Villa and then bosh, they got rid of him. Except this time, they've now had pretty much every single professionally qualified manager do the job in that period of time and he's back. So they're running out of options.
Yeah, they've actually literally run out.
I mean, I suspect even if Klopp was still available,
They definitely go with. They definitely try and tempt him.
I would be really surprised if the people at the top weren't putting feelers out and trying to work.
Even to Klopp.
Well, even if you look at Villas-Boas when they took him on,
Yeah.
it was. I mean, he was sort of up and coming, and people knew his name and stuff. But it's not like they're not afraid to take a gamble. They don't have to take a household name.
Do you think it's amazing though that they are sticking with Jose now, but maybe if they stick with AVB or Andre Villas-Boas, then they would have had a different result?
I think the thing is with Jose, like you say, he's almost literally they've run out of options. The usual routine for Chelsea was to get a short-term appointment to get them a 4th place, and then look at a Villas-Boas.
What's Di Matteo doing?
Di Matteo, he was at Schalke, and then he got sat there. So I think the name really is Ancelotti or Hiddink. Those would be the people who would come in on a short-term basis to replace him. If only they hadn't stabbed him in the back in a corridor at Goodison Park. Gus Hiddink, unfortunately, is probably seen now as slightly damaged good past it because of what he's done with the Dutch job. I do have some sympathy with Jose Mourinho, certainly, because I think he's, from what I heard, he's going through a very, very difficult time personally with his family, and he's going back to Portugal and all that sort of thing. For the match itself against Liverpool, I thought Chelsea actually started the game very, very well, and tactically as well. I think Jose Mourinho did some very interesting, almost Klopp-esque things himself by letting Liverpool have the ball.
They nailed the first 10.
This is actually my point. So the first 10 to 15 minutes, it was all spot on.
Yeah.
Chelsea let Liverpool have the ball. When Liverpool had the ball, they didn't seem to know what to do with it.
Okay.
They did, again, Klopp-ish type thing by surrounding Liverpool players under pressure, quick turnaround, and then stringing some excellent passing together and finding space down wide and places like that. Unfortunately, there was a collective nosebleed moment after 10-15 minutes where even this Jose Mourinho team cannot hang on to a 1-0 lead. Chelsea were never going to keep a clean sheet in this game.
So fragile though, isn't it?
I just think they were never going to keep a clean sheet. They was going to have to outscore them, and I thought there was a 5-minute period. They have to get another one here. Yeah. They really have to add to this because this window is going to last another 20 seconds.
Yeah, but it actually did. But that was the point where for the next 85 minutes, Liverpool were the better team in most departments, apart from Willian, who was the man of the match as far as I was concerned.
I think Chelsea should be giving him Player of the Year award now. I think Liverpool was actually a very, very interesting story throughout the game because they started the game with a totally different team to the one that ended it, and that's Chelsea's fault by not adapting to the game. They were allowed to play into the game, so it's in that sense I think Klopp did a fantastic game. I think it got less tactical in the second half, and the game got dominated by incidents like the Skirtle Costa thing and the
Lucas
Lucas should have had a yellow card, and it descended into, let's say, perhaps familiar Chelsea-Liverpool territory.
It was quite interesting watching that. I mean, you've obviously seen the highlights of Lucas and Ramirez coming together, and also the coming together of Costa and Skirtle, because Skirtle for a second did this sort of and then stopped and sort of looked at him like, I think you both know. And then it went from there.
Yeah,
he could have got him sent off if he wanted.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Why didn't he?
I guess because somewhere deep down, occasionally, there are very tiny fragments of footballers that somewhere along the line they're not all hideous. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they behave like normal humans.
I think under Rodgers, and I'm not. This isn't an indication of whether I like or dislike Rodgers. I think under Rodgers, Skirtle would have tried to get him sent off, and I think under Klopp, Klopp's like be a bit happier,
bit more respectful to football.
Yeah, exactly, and maybe
nicer, better for everybody.
I don't think Jose Mourinho. We all saw in a press conference afterwards. It was awkward. It wasn't awkward. It was just quite sad in a way because you see all these kind of the bullish kind of theatrics, which made him such an intoxicating figure when he arrived in England. It was a ridiculous performance, really. He was. There was some analysis on the BBC website from a psychologist about Jose Mourinho, why he's an interesting figure. The thing is that Jose Mourinho was doing two things at once. He was saying, I've got nothing to say, by going out and saying something. So he was passive-aggressively communicating that there's all this stuff, it's pretty obvious stuff, but there's all this stuff that I can't say, so I'm deliberately not saying it. But that's a statement in itself.
Bayern and awful result of the weekend. Yeah.
Terrible team.
Yeah. What's going on there?
Nothing.
Interesting.
I think it's a case of every single team in the history of the world, I think, at times has dropped points because you get ever so slightly comfortable. The players become a bit lazy in there. They're thinking, we'll just go out and we'll win again. And
do you think they're really? I don't know if that was really the case.
Other day, but I mean, mentally, you start winning, and they know that to an extent, or they probably were feeling it, not so much now, that the Bundesliga was wrapped up, and that their focus is the Champions League. That's when they were getting excited. It was in the midweek fixtures that they're sat at home thinking, I can't wait for football tomorrow.
Good point.
Whereas they were coming to the weekend being like, right, we'll get one out of the way, and then we're playing whoever they're playing in the Champions League, like Arsenal, for example,
this week.
So I think there perhaps is an element of a more relaxed attitude mentally. And you get that because you get that with Chelsea, Manchester United, Real Madrid, because the focus for the players becomes less on the league. I think it might just be a case of that, and this will wake them up and they'll carry on again.
0-0, obviously, so it's not a loss, which means that they keep the unbeaten record, but not the 100% win record. Although, they still set the 10 wins in a row record, so that in many ways it's not terrible.
I think, Frankfurt also had an incredible amount of chances. Both teams did, actually. So they did look...
Why was it so open?
I've absolutely no idea.
Fantastic. Well, let's know in the comments below why it was so open.
No, I think it's to do with what we were saying. They always, week in, week out, we were having discussions about Bayern Munich and is the Bundesliga a closed shop. But we've always had the caveat that you do look like you can get to their back line, essentially. And Frankfurt showed that again. I think it's really... I think the interesting thing is that they've had a 10-point lead cut to 5, albeit this time last week, Dortmund, etc., had a game in hand, but it's still 10-5 when they look out
to the bush.
Yeah, as the old saying goes.
A game in the hand.
I think it's so important they keep Royce fit and Dortmund, and the fact that they've kept hold of him as well. And absolutely, Royce got 2 against Bremen, and it doesn't look like it's got... I still think Bayern Munich will win it.
Yeah, that's...
I know 10 halved to 5 sounds like a lot. 5 is still quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still not good. But it's enough that, if it was... the problem is they just look so strong, don't they, as a side. And in that league, you think whereas with the Premier League, you get that week in, week out, there are much more surprises. City nearly drawing or potentially losing at home to Norwich. I know they won it comfortably in the end. But you don't get that so much in Germany because Bayern Munich are so much stronger than everybody else. But generally. So you think, will there be enough games for them to drop those points?
Probably not.
No, probably not.
Even then, head-to-head, you'd imagine, the 5-1 drumming of Dortmund didn't help Dortmund, did it? But,
the worst concept, it does look, Dortmund will get back into Champions League, which is great. I think it'll be really, really good.
That would be great to see them there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of people singing the praise of Tuchel.
Yes. Yeah.
But also singing a lot of the praise of other managers in that league this season because there is a lot of young, strong management throughout the league, which is fantastic.
They've already. I think it's a psychologically interesting because they've already lost 5-1 to Bayern. So if they've got another one of those, they've got that out of the way. So there's almost I think they'd almost, and on this show as well, we kind of sort of assumed 10 points where they were slightly out of sight. Doesn't seem to be the case. They seem to be doing their business. Great away win at Bremen.
Can I ask, how much do you think fixture order impacts your season?
I think it's massive because people always say, well, you play every team twice, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think it's huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Prove it.
Well,
it's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah, but
it does
Christmas,
mean something.
I think, is the ultimate time because I think psychologically,
Presents.
if you fall 6 or 7 points behind and you're the team on top, the pressure on you if you're the team in second and you fall that far behind is much bigger than the team at the top.
Manchester United, 0.3 this week is about, well,
What
drawing
a side.
and the fact that they looked pretty blunt against Crystal Palace, who didn't actually look all that blunt. They had chances to win the game. Balassi hitting the bar most memorably.
I can't work out if De Gea saved that or not.
He did.
Oh, I thought he
did. It would have gone in had De Gea not put his fingers to it.
What a guy.
Yeah.
What a man. It's exciting. It's not fun to watch. It's not really fun to talk about.
But it is exciting.
I can imagine it's a really difficult job being the guy who makes the highlights for Manchester United games.
Really?
No.
Okay.
But
really,
the problem is, before we get to Wayne Rooney, goodness, is that there appears to be, and
surely
I'm
that's
keep
one
pointing
sentence.
this out.
The problem is Rooney.
No, of course it's not. Because if you look at Memphis Depay, he was brought in, very exciting, one of the most attacking forces in European football last season in the Netherlands, whereas this season in England hasn't done as much, but he's been very good in the Champions League, but not done as much in the Premier League, because there seems to be a level of we push it forward, and once we're in that final third, I think we are number one in the Premier League by a huge distance for the team that passes the ball backwards once they get in that final third. And that's where the problem lies. It's not about, it's easy to criticise Wayne Rooney, he's not playing very well. And the problem is we're getting the ball forward, and then, I don't know if this is a Louis van Gaalism, I've no idea. We get there, and then there is like a rule of do not risk anything. Do not lose possession. I think possession seems to have become more important than the actual play. And so the ball is getting pushed forward and then instantly coming back again.
But where's the ball moving mostly? Because you would say that there's also, tactically, Barcelona used to do this. They used to shift a team from side to side, side to side, side to side. Manchester United, how do they shift?
It's a lot of play, especially before Luke Shaw broke his leg, came from him and Darmian. The ball would move around the middle and then you'd see it back, and Luke Shaw would be perched halfway into the other team's half, and the ball would move from his feet a lot. It would come into the middle, you see Schweinsteiger, Schneidlin, Carrick, Herrera, Fellaini, whoever's in there, and then it's going straight back. It's coming in, then it'll move over to Darmian. Here, get it, he'll have a little look around. He might do a 1-2 with Mata, then it will come back. And then you'll see the ball far more often than ever in a Manchester United team at the feet of the centre-backs. Chris Smalling and Daley Blind have the ball constantly, and Chris Smalling has come on so much and is a fantastic centre-back. However, when the ball is at his feet and he's stood on the halfway line, he never really looks 100% comfortable going, I'm going to pick somebody out here. He looks.
Why should he?
Well, yeah, because he's a centre-back.
Well, he might be. I suppose you can have a ball playing centre-back, but he's not that.
More often than you'd like is that's when we then lose the ball. And Phil Jones is the same. He doesn't want the ball on the halfway line, looking with every player in front of him trying to pick a pass. Because if they get that wrong, there's nobody behind them.
I've said a lot on this show, Laurence, as you know.
Great point. Anyway, back to Sam.
No. And one of them has been in the last few weeks was that, I was very excited about Manchester United because they've got goals all over the pitch, and it's almost like there is this latent conservatism in how they play. In terms of going backwards, and it's quite frustrating. It must be quite frustrating because you've got a lot of flair players who are just sort of floating a bit, and it's and away from home they're playing quite far up the pitch, and I thought that's the way to play Palace is to sit and then break.
We've scored the least goals, and I think had the least shots in any team in the top half of the table, possibly, definitely in the top 4.
Vardy should now be taken seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he can't stop scoring, can he? He's only behind.
Physically can't.
He physically can't. So there needs to be an intervention.
He goes home and they're like,
there needs to be an intervention between defenders and goalkeepers to stop him scoring. He's only behind now Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Yeah, 10, didn't he? 10 and 10.
He's got 10.
Well,
10 in 10
consecutive.
games.
He might have scored a couple.
So I think is
what's that down to?
Pardon?
What's that down to?
I think it's down to
Nigel Pearson.
I think it's time to look at the Tinkerman in sort of positive light. If you look at the statistics of the amount of games he's won from losing positions and etc. etc.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, why is he won from losing so many losing positions?
Because he changes things in the second half.
Exactly. And that's the answer for all of us, really, isn't it?
I think confidence plays a huge role. Yeah. I think if you look in the aspect of sport and you listen to some players who get to the top level, like say because you've got the Premier League and then you've got the step up to the top 4. There are players that do that who maybe don't have the ability of some of the others, but if they're confident in their ability, what's different?
Would you say that's a relevant point to the point we just made about Rooney? And
perhaps. A complete lack of confidence. Doesn't look like he wants it. Doesn't look interested. But he's like Fernando Torres. when confident, unbelievable. That he's got the same physical attributes. The only thing that's different is what's going on in here. And once this
I don't know.
wasn't the same,
That's part of it, isn't it? I think physical attributes for a player do heavily influence what's going on. I think Wayne Rooney is struggling in the same way that Fernando Torres did, losing maybe pace or losing a couple of other things to his game that allowed him to just think much more easily about other things. And what you'd say is Vardy is now reaching. Well, he's reaching the zenith of his career, you'd imagine, at quite a late age.
Is he 28?
Yeah. 28, yeah. My question is, does he fit too much the mould of other strikers who have come through in a similar way, or other strikers who have been on the fringes of the England team at Kevin Phillips, Jermaine Defoe, those kind of guys?
I think you'd say he's probably. I was going to say, I wouldn't worry about him for the World Cup in 2018. But right now, this is a man who's scoring loads of goals.
World Cup right now.
Of course, he's got to be in the team, and he should be going to the Euros because right now, people go, "What? Jamie Vardy from Leicester City? Boy, he's not Wayne Rooney." Too many people focus on the name and the club they play for and how much money they earn. Right now, this is an Englishman who cannot stop scoring goals.
I do think that's
has to be in the team.
But I do think that's reflected. There's a reason that they focus on the team or where they're playing for, because it's reflective.
Can I answer your initial question about essentially why Leicester come back from losing positions and scored so many second half goals?
Yeah, Nigel Pearson.
I think Nigel Pearson?
Yeah.
Not Claudio Ranieri?
Well, it was, who's the manager of West Brom? Tony Pulis said, Nigel Pearson did this.
Really?
Yeah.
So what he's just curated. One of the things is that I think Leicester City are adaptable because they can basically have a day where Riyad Mahrez scores 2 goals and Vardy can contribute that. They can rely on. They've got basically different players. They can rely on. I also think
subs as well.
I also think Jamie Vardy's experience in La Liga means he can do a variety of different roles that strikers who are traditional poachers who are used to playing with excellent players can't score. For example, and that's all the physical attributes that you're talking about. And it's great to see someone who's played all the way down the league, who's a real athlete and has had to basically just muck in and do other people's jobs year after year. Kitman. Well, you just don't know with the state of the bottom of the pyramid.
Good point. Yeah. Everton made a European statement on the weekend, didn't they?
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think.
Scheiße.
What was interesting?
2 European statements.
What was very interesting, I think, actually, how Sunderland started and how dramatically the scoreline was at the end. I mean, they really gave Everton a good going in the first 15. Yeah, they did. They
you really focus on early parts of games.
You love it.
At the moment, yes.
Yeah.
At the moment, and then I turn over to Emmerdale at like about half time. But I think I did see a change. Sam Allardyce has sponsored the players. I mean, they look very came out the traps very fast. They
did that under the Cap, mate. Did that when the game he got sacked. They did that and they played good football. But Sam Allardyce done nothing so far.
Do you think so?
He has not righted any wrongs or steadied any ships.
I think if Sunderland had the rubber green, didn't hit the post or had one of those chances, it could be a very different game early on.
How many do you think they would have needed to score?
I don't.
They would need to score 4 more.
I think just for a point.
I thought Jermaine Defoe's goal was very good, but unfortunately they did completely unravel like many times we've seen before.
Yeah,
and that flips us over to Everton, of course, where we see a front combination of Kone and Lukaku that quite a few journalists have been speaking about being quite excited by. But it's fantastic. Kone scored the hat-trick. Lukaku with 1, should have scored the second, arguably. Looking good.
Do you know what's nice about that as well? Is that journalists can't find some horrible little acronym for them unless they try to associate it with like Lorraine Kelly or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know how they're like MSN and SAS and BBC? Good God, just use their names. I hate that.
Yeah, good point.
That's a real gripe of mine. Stop it. Stop pretending that like no one uses MSN. Get over it. Here's a question for you.
Try and come up with one while you're giving the answer.
You said about their Everton's European ambitions.
Yes.
So presumably Europa League. Do you think they want to be in the Europa League? Because as far as I can work out, no English teams want to be there. They try to get there, then the moment they're there, they hate it. Yeah. And I find it really weird, because wouldn't it be brilliant? Do you remember when Fulham did it and Middlesbrough did it? Yeah. They went on a proper European adventure. Because isn't it worth getting there?
And where did they go?
But isn't it, ultimately relegated? But not because of that, were they?
Please do that, Everton. That would be fantastic.
Wouldn't it be better to say Southampton, if they'd really gone for it, they qualified, maybe that means they come 12th this season because they're spending more time in Europe. But isn't it better for their fans that they...
Is it?
Wouldn't you rather say come 10th, but you win or you get to a European Cup final? Isn't that more exciting?
Doesn't help your coefficient.
But isn't that...
Not to
But
be...
as a Champions League place now, if you win the Europa League. Do you think that's been
when the Spanish teams win, everyone loves it.
A carrot.
It's just such a long roll of the dice to get there that you think, are you better focusing in the league? But the worry therefore is that people don't put the proper.
But what if you're a Premiership team like Everton? You're like, okay,
you don't get Champions League.
The top 4 is a closed shop in this for us this season, not necessarily philosophically, not necessarily forever. But let's just say you get to a certain point in the season where it looks getting to fourth place is if you're into the knockout stages of the Europa Cup, that's your best. You say it's a long old slog. That's your best chance of getting to the Champions League.
Yeah, but what's the point in qualifying? You work all season to be like, yes, we came 6th, yes, we came 5th. You work all that hard to get to that position to qualify, to then be like, right, we need to get out of this ASAP. This is the last thing we want.
They want longevity though, and the problem is if you get into the Champions League once, or you go on a cup run once, you end up with players who are frustrated because they only did it for one season, they had a taste of it, and then won't get back there. And you have that sort of the disparacy of fuck, we're not in it again this season because we won it previous. And it doesn't feel like it's a healthy kind of building for a club.
I think
but they do have to find a way of doing it.
It's boring and unambitious to look at a European competition and go, I understand the reasons behind it, but from a purely footballing perspective, and for the point of everybody turning up every weekend and actually playing, to qualify after a season, to get to a European competition and go like, right, this is problematic, this is slightly awkward to actually bother with this European competition.
Yeah.
That when everybody watches the Spanish teams that were always in the final, winning the trophy, everyone goes, brilliant, look at them. Wouldn't it be great for an English team to bother to try and win a European trophy?
I think you put your finger on it earlier. I think you put your finger on it earlier on, which is that is actually the teams in that second season, almost second season syndrome. Either they have overachieved and got that European place, they don't have the squad or they don't literally have the amount of players who can sustain both tournaments. So the first thing to go is the European, which is a shame because it is such an objective for those kind of if you've come up like Southampton or Swansea to get a European, it's kind of you're in dreamland territory. And then, but unfortunately, if you do have a difficult season, it's the first thing to go.
Well, that was fantastic. You saw us making lots of points there, especially Sam. Sam, if people want to see making more points, they'll go to Full-Time Devils?
Yeah, go to Full-Time Devils and watch some things. Not often me, but lots of other people making points. Mine are mostly redundant.
Yeah. You sort of tease points out of people most of the time, don't you?
Yeah, I just think that's more fun because I don't really trust my own opinions.
Yeah. Fatty, tell me a point.
What point did you fall in love with Manchester United?
I have supported Manchester United.
They were so successful.
Since I have been alive. I've got little kits, like ridiculous little kits.
Yeah,
my mum's kept them.
You mean you're indoctrinated into it, is what you're saying?
To an extent, yeah, because my mum's like, but I always supported them because I fancied George best. And I try to work out the ages, and I think, I don't know if that makes sense, Mum. You're not that old.
Yeah.
Well, we got some fantastic Champions League previews to come this week. So
if you enjoyed this,
there's plenty more to come. But give us a subscribe, give us a like.
And we'll see you there for the Champions League previews later in the week. Have a good one.